sun is racing.
Howdy race fans, and welcome to Texas Motor Speedway for another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your action for the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500. That's right, we're doing the Texas two-step in the Lone Star State, where stages for this race are going to be at laps 85, lap 170, and then we'll race all the way to the finish at lap 334.
The winner has come from the third position 4 times since 2012. And 2 of those were Jimmy Johnson back-to-back in 2013 and 2014. Will Clint Bowyer have his first back-to-back win? Things that make you go,
Well, kids, the weather should be much improved and around 60 degrees when we go racing tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Yeah, it was a little bit of an interesting situation. Liehr and I were waiting so we could give you as much practice data and information as possible. And then it went from 80 degrees to 30 degrees, and cars didn't really run a whole lot during practice. We have limited information to go on, so we're going to entertain it up with a lot of historical analysis this week, I have a feeling. But before we get into historical analysis, one thing that we can report is early this morning, Sticky Ricky managed to wreck yet another car and is on a backup car as he trashed his car in practice too. Will he give owners that Sunny D refreshment this weekend, or that rut got? It's Sticky Ricky. You never know. Liehr, do you think Sticky Ricky's going to do anything positive this week?
Absolutely not. And even though he's going to be starting in the, 26th position, I'm still very reluctant, to say the least, to show that man any love, because he just seems that he can't keep that car on the track.
All right, well, I've got a good one for us. I'm going to claim that he'll actually do some good this week. So the loser of this bet has to chug a Sunny D next week before the episode and perform the whole episode after chugging a Sunny D.
Oh, God, that is going to be horrible.
Just a mini one, right? Are you willing to take the bet?
Okay. All right. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because first thing that come to my mind is, the big boy.
Yeah, no, but we'll have to chug on camera, whoever loses this bet.
All right, sounds good to me, brother.
And perform the entire episode with this Sunny D gut rot. All right, Liehr, we got the cold weather practice elements all taken care of, and we've seen people sort of practice, sort of not practice. Do the honors of burning rubber this week, buddy.
Burning rubber, Texas two-style, baby!
Oh, and he even went guns up for all the Texas Tech fans out there. All right. Liehr, who's your pick to burn some rubber this week, buddy?
Man, it was kind of difficult to differentiate between drivers this week. I mean, coming off the Martinsville STP 500, going from short track racing back to the 1.5 mile. Now, Texas is obviously a little different than, some of the other 1.5 mile tracks on the circuit, but I'm actually going to be rolling with Larson with my burning rubber pick. This season, Larson and the 42 team, have not been off to the hot start that they were last season, of course, but this week coming to Texas, where he's had some pretty recent success here. He's going to be starting tomorrow from the 10th position, and, I really, really do like him when it comes to Texas Motor Speedway. Now, a lot of people will look at the stats and say, well, he doesn't really have the statistical data in order for me to, make him as one of my main drivers. But for me, I think obviously we're going to talk about it with your pick. But, last year, man, he had a poor qualifying in starting from the 32nd position and finished second. And then in the fall last year, he started from the 11th position, but he did lead 74 laps before crashing out in the fall race. But obviously with the way that this track runs, they don't really run the high line here. So that's going to, be a little bit more difficult for him. But, man, I really feel like this team is on the brink of trying to break out. And I'm going to have a lot of exposure on Larson just because I think a lot of other people are going to avoid him. And this week, starting from that 10th position, that gives you that place differential in there as well. with him. Now, granted, he does come with a pretty hefty salary of $9,700, which makes him the 5th highest on the board. But you're going to have a lot of other players going with the, Harvicks and Truexes and Kyle Bushes and all that. So I think a really good swerve play for you this weekend is going to be Kyle Larson, and I'm going to be going that route tomorrow with my burn rubber pick. And I just think it's going to be a great pick and one of those to where I think they really, really have a chance of actually not only coming up with a victory tomorrow, but actually being that dominator. Because also, too, he wasn't the fastest guy when it came to practices, but I will say he was the 4th fastest in 10-lap averages in the final practice. So that does give me some bright light hope there for him. So I'm definitely going to be rolling with Kyle Larson tomorrow, brother.
Yeah, no, I actually like this play, and it makes me wish that we'd have been a little bit more instinctual about a play like this when it came to Clint Bowyer last race. And I feel like the Larson play here is a little bit less of a stretch as the Bowyer play, but it's very much in the same sort of tone. A lot of people aren't talking about Larson this week because you can't run the high line here. There are better drivers statistically here. It's a very interesting swerve that I really don't have a problem with you picking, and I like his starting position there 10th. It also gives you a little bit of buffer zone in case you want to play Larson with another dominator. We've seen that play work out several times this season as well. I really don't have much more to add than that. I feel the same thing that you were with picking a driver this week. It's ridiculous. And most of my argument for why I'm on the driver I'm on, which is Kevin Harvick at 11,500, is mostly that I don't like other drivers this week. So let me get into that explanation. I realize that Harvick is the most expensive driver by $900 on the board, but of all the other drivers that dominate Texas are literally gone from the sport, other than Jimmy Johnson, who has 7 wins here. But we've seen Jimmy Johnson's problems this season. He seems to only be a play when he's starting from the back because they're not finishing in the top 5. Jimmy Johnson's not at his normal level of excellence for me to want to make him a play this weekend. I don't even think that he will do anything this weekend. The next guy on the list is Hamlin, who hasn't won a race here since 2010, and he's one of the only other guys with 2. Rowdy, who has been dominant here but only has 2 wins, doesn't leave it a lot of laps, and finished 15th and 19th here last year. That leaves us with Kurt Busch out of the drivers that have wins here, who doesn't lead laps here and hasn't won here since he was driving for Penske all the way back in 2009.
And he's on the pole this weekend.
Right. So that leaves me with Harvick, who's 2nd this weekend and who won here last fall, has led chunks of laps here. But better yet, in my opinion, he has finishes of 2nd, 3rd, 10th, 6th, 4th, and 1st in his last 7 starts at Texas. I know he's pricey, I know it's not flashy, and I know you're probably getting tired of hearing me talk about Harvick, but he's the best car, and he's priced the highest for a reason this week, in my opinion. It's the smartest play, and once again, I keep stressing this, but for some reason, Kevin Harvick is statistically under-owned week in and week out as a driver for what he's supposed to be on these tracks. This might be another one of those instances where Harvick comes under-owned from what he mathematically should be in a contest. I'm just leaning the Harvick route unless I'm trying to design fades this week. That's where my gut's telling me the chalk is. Liehr, your opinions on Harvick?
Well, I think your gut's talking to you right, man, because it's going to be a good play this weekend. I definitely love Kevin Harvick this week. And how about Stewart Haas overall in general, winning 4 out of the first 6 races and then coming out after the Easter break. And by the way, hope everybody had a fantastic Easter. But after the Easter break and coming out and qualifying 1, 2, 3. Now, I know it was shortened due to weather, but still, I mean, that team and what was Amarola, I think 10th or 11th,
12th.
Or I'm sorry, 12th. That whole team in general has just been amazing so far this year. And Kevin Harvick is one of those types of guys where, I mean, the guy's won 3 races. Okay, he went to short track on at Martinsville, and obviously wasn't his day, but here we are back to a 1.5 mile track where. I mean, do you remember the days where it was like literally Harvick Johnson?
Yeah, that's what you
1.5.
If it was a 1.5 mile track, you didn't play anybody but Harvick or Johnson, and then then you filled out the rest of your lineup. You're
Right.
absolutely right.
Like you said, over his stats, I mean, the guy's just got amazing stats here since 2014. And then last year alone, he started on the pole this race last year and led 77 laps. And he finished fourth. So it wasn't like that was going to kill your lineups if you rostered him last year. So I know he's expensive, like you said, and he is expensive, and it's going to make it hard to fit guys into your lineup that you want to. But at the end of the day, if you're going to go with a safe play and you're going to go with a guy that probably, in my opinion, will lead at least out of those 334 laps, he's going to at least have 100 and some laps led in this race by the time it's all said and done. I think, though, one guy that you mentioned, too, Kyle Busch, that guy is right on the brink of getting his first win of the season. And this week he starts in the 8th position. Now, he wasn't practicing very well when it comes to, earlier today and then also in final practice. But he was 11th, and he's practicing out of the top 10. So I don't know how much confidence they have in that car. Probably going to make some changes to it, I'm sure. And even in the 10-lap averages, he was, about 6th with the fastest 10-lap average. So, but starting 8th, that gives you some wiggle room there. So, I mean, for him to come out and make some changes to that car and then, get on the track tomorrow and hopefully have it where it's a lot faster and they can get up to the front and stay up front. And I think tomorrow, though, man, it's going to be crazy because this thing got repaved last year. So there wasn't much grip on the high side, and they tried to add some more grip to it this week. There's been some pretty good carnage today in the Xfinity race. So now obviously the temperatures have changed quite a bit since yesterday, but I think that there's going to be quite a few wrecks that we're not going to be accounting for or stuff that we just don't foresee that's going to happen, and it's going to throw a wrinkle in there somewhere.
Just remember, though, that this race had 5 green flag pit stops at it last year, so there weren't a whole lot of cautions to stop the field, and if that's the case, then you're not going to get that carnage you talked about. And this is one of those tracks where it's an either or, and we saw the wreck-heavy side in the Xfinity Series. It's just whether or not that's going to play out in the Cup Series. Well, Liehr, if you want to go chalk and play Harvick, you're going to need to save some money. Who do you have this week for us to value up on?
Well, as far as this week, brother, I'm going to be pulling a Poppa on everybody and giving a twofer here.
Oh, what? Wow. I thought you were morally opposed to that.
Yeah, not something that I normally go with. But this week, first one I'm going to be going with is Daniel Suarez. He's going to be starting in the 14th position for tomorrow's race. But, man, he was showing a lot of speed today and yesterday in his number 19 Toyota with Joe Gibbs. But, starting from that 14th position, he doesn't have, very good stats here. He's only got a couple races under his belt, which obviously last year in the Cup Series, he finished 19th after starting 20th and then finished 14th after starting 6th. So, right there in that top 15 speed. But, man, those Toyotas were showing some pretty good speed today. I really like the Toyotas and JGR. I think they're going to be sneaky on these Ford guys when it comes to tomorrow, along with Larson. But I'm definitely going to be rolling with some Daniel Suarez because on top of that, man, he gives you quite a bit of salary relief this week at being $7,200. And then my second pick coming at you is Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman starting in the 25th position. And, obviously we're talking about a seasoned veteran here in Ryan Newman. But also, too, with him, he's $7,800, which is a little bit higher than kind of where he's been at this season. And so I think a lot of people will kind of not be able to fit him into their lineups, especially if they're going to be going top heavy with, a couple big boys like Harvick and maybe Truex or Harvick Larson or Harvick, Rowdy Busch or, however you want to mix it up there. But the money's going to be thin. So I don't know if a lot of people are going to be able to get to Newman. But I think starting from the 25th position, he was practicing in the teens. And on top of that, he's just got some really good stats here at Texas. So, a guy that's a seasoned veteran like that and starting in the mid-20s, I mean, you always got to be salivating when it comes to that. But I'm definitely going to be picking those two guys quite a bit in my lineups this week, brother.
All right, dude. So Ryan Newman, I absolutely have no problem with. The Daniel Suarez play, I'm pretty sure you're smoking crack on. Because not only do I understand where you're trying to go at with Suarez starting 14th, but, dude, that risk is just ridiculous, especially when you have for $100 more. Menard starting 19th, and he's in Blaney's car from last year that almost won this race. I can play McMurray, who has a better place differential, even though he's had some sketch results
this year.
Yeah, I understand, dude, but he's also in a Chip Ganassi car, which has been running. The other Chip Ganassi car has been running top 5 all season, and you recommended it for your burning rubber. It's the same vehicle.
Two different drivers, brother.
Fair enough, but Jamie McMurray's a top 10 driver, and he's cheaper than Suarez by $200. Statistically, he's a top 10 driver over the course of his career. I would say that at some point he's going to right the ship, and that's just a better place differential play than Suarez. And then you've got Sticky Ricky right below that, who we both agree, like, it's question mark at best, but he's starting 26th in a 6,900 and didn't come on your register. And then my value pick, which is William Byron, starting 33rd. He's actually starting from the rear because they had to do an engine swap and then didn't qualify, and they just went out and, like, worked on his feel.
Tires off that bad boy.
Right, worked on the feel of the car. So he's starting, he'll be scored as 33rd for DraftKings purposes, but I'm not worried. And he's $6,700, which is way cheaper than Suarez and is going to give me so much more place differential and have basically the same finishing potential. The other problem I have, Liehr, with your recommendation there is that if I really was all about a JGR car, I would spend a little bit more and get Eric Jones starting 21st. Dude, I do not understand your Suarez play. And this is coming from a guy that's recommended Suarez the last 2 weeks. And, I like the guy. I love JGR. Like, that car's fast. And great story. His car is actually it's a special paint scheme that was co-designed by a bunch of kids that are suffering from terminal illnesses. And all their names are on the hood of that car this week. So I'm rooting for Daniel Suarez. I want that to be the case. But, dude, starting 14th, that is just a dangerous value play in my opinion. And I would much, much rather go with my value play or any of the 4 guys I listed off. Now it's time.
I would have much, much rather gone with your value play too, but unfortunately somebody else had that driver, so I couldn't pick that driver. But, no, I mean, Billy Byron,
Billy
starting
Moore?
from Billy, starting from that position. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I think he's going to come with a large, massive ownership percentage, but it's not going to matter because he performs and he's going to bring the numbers, so it's going to be okay. But when you're talking about Paul Menard, you know what, man? I know I looked at him, I was thinking about him, but I was like, I can't do that. I can't put Paul Menard in there. There's just something about it. Ryan Blaney, talented driver, obviously, going to the number 12 this year in Penske. But even giving that ride, the Woods brother ride to Paul Menard, he still hasn't done anything with that vehicle really yet this year. It's about the talent of the driver, and I'm sorry, but Paul Menard's a nice guy, but I just don't know if he's cut out to be a guy that's going to actually produce on the racetrack. And I mean, that comes to show with his performances, man. But same thing with Jamie McMurray. Maybe I'm just still, bitter at the fact of I was all over him in Martinsville, starting from that almost the same position, and the guy couldn't even move forward, even out of the top 20. And I still kind of question, and I know he's a hometown Missouri guy, but I'm still questioning the fact that how that guy even has a ride, because he hasn't won a race in, I can't even tell you how long. It's been so long since that guy's won a race. Either he is like attached to McDonald's and has all this sponsorship money, kind of like how Amarola had Smithfield, like kind of in his back pocket. I don't know if there's some sort of sponsorship deal there or something, but man, as a race car driver, Jamie McMurray's just been hugely disappointing, especially this season. And I don't know if I can go that route. And, here I am saying that I can't go that route and watch him go out tomorrow and get a freaking top 10 or something stupid.
No, with guys, all the viewers out there need to pay attention. When Jamie's talking smack on a driver like this, the dude wins the race. Like, this has happened several times this season already. So if you're not thinking of rostering Jamie McMurray, you might want to at this point in time.
But here's the other thing too: is he's been doing so bad that and he raced earlier this year in the Xfinity race, but he hardly ever raced in Xfinity, and now he's racing again this weekend. I just think that they're trying to get him some more exposure behind the wheel, which talking about a veteran that's been doing it forever. It's hard to believe, but I mean, he was even having trouble today in the 42 in the Xfinity Series. So I can't go there, and I probably won't go there.
I just love how you question how Menard's in the sport. It's because his name is Menard, and he carries with him a multi-million-dollar sponsorship from Menards.
Menards, yeah, I get that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, like for my fantasy team, I can choose who I play, and
I'm sure if the conglomerate was called Liehr's or Williams, we would be that NASCAR driver that people were talking smack on right now too. But I
am not saving big money at Menards this week.
See, I think it's one of the right plays. I think that Menard is going to have a decent week in that equipment.
Here's one other thing I wanted to talk about too. The reason I'm fighting for Daniel Suarez is because, one, you're getting a guy that's in top-notch equipment. Two, he's already starting in the top 15, okay? So he's got a great position there. Now, I know you're looking at it more from, okay, he's got larger area for place differential. I'm looking at it more for the price tag that I'm getting the guy at and where I think the finishing position is going to come from.
Right, dude.
And I definitely think after today and practice and everything else, that guy's going to have a top 10 this weekend. And so at that price, I would rather get a guy finishing in the top 10 than somebody that, potentially starting in the 26th position and maybe finishing in the 20th or 21st position. Plus, I'm getting all those points for the position as well. I'm going to go Daniel Suarez all day, every day this weekend versus those other guys.
And that is bold thinking that Suarez is going to get a top 10. He's usually a 15 driver. Like, my problem with Suarez really is he's going to finish right where he's starting, in my opinion. And that might work. It's just not necessarily – I don't think it will with the other cars. That's what I was trying to get at. And I think there's a really good risk that he goes backwards some. Clearly, there's some guys we want to send to the garage this week. And if the list keeps expanding, because none of the guys that Liehr just sent to the garage are guys that are on his list. So, Liehr, who are you going to send to the garage for us this week, buddy?
Man, it really pains me to do this because I really like this guy. Awesome driver. Been a good dude. Just awesome to the fans. But I can't do it this weekend. I could have gone the easy route and went Kurt Busch. And I hope a lot of you out there are pretty much know that fact that just don't play Kurt Busch this weekend. But I'm going to be going with somebody else that's driving it forward, and I'm going with Ryan Blaney. I know that might sound odd, but, he's starting, in that fourth position, right behind Clint Boyer. But, he led 148 laps at this race last season. Now, granted, he started second. This weekend, he's starting fourth. But I can't do it, man. He's started the last last 4 races in the top 10. He started 7th, 8th, 2nd, and 8th, and he finished 29th, 12th, and 6th. And he didn't, in the fall here last year, he didn't lead any laps, even though he started 8th. At his price tag, how much he costs this week at $8,900, in my personal opinion, I feel that your money is best spent in other spots, other places. I'd rather take that money and split some of it and go for a lower tiered place differential guy and then give a little bit more of that money to somebody higher that I know is going to be more of a dominator than spend it on Ryan Blaney, who's kind of that one in that tweener position. And I don't foresee him. Now, granted, today he started on the pole in the Xfinity and went out and led a bunch of laps.
And just won the race, by the way.
Okay.
Just won.
I don't have it up in front of me, but, congratulations to him. That's awesome that he won. But ironically, I'm not feeling it for Ryan Blaney tomorrow. I think that car is definitely a top 10 car, but he's not going to go out and he's not going to lead a ton of laps and be that difference maker in your lineups tomorrow.
Well, kids, you heard it here first. The proper lineup for this weekend is Blaney, Menard, McMurray, like just picking straight against Liehr. That's what's going to win you all the money this week. No, dude. Look, I get your arguments against Blaney, and they're bold.
Break out the sweeper.
But no, dude. Blaney dominated here last fall. He's actually in better equipment in the Penske car than he was in his Wood Brothers car last year, where he dominated here. With us having basically no information on the track with how good they're running, he's just as good. He has just as good of a chance to be the dominator as any of the other cars up front, and he comes at a significant value. I get that you're wanting to send somebody to the garage. I just don't understand why it's Blaney in this instance. It just seems like a very dangerous play. and I went nowhere near danger. I went with the easiest going to the garage pick ever, and that is Trevor Bayne starting 13th. That is right, kids. You heard me correctly. Starting 13th. Trevor Bayne hasn't even been a play this season for us when he's been starting in the late 20s. He's been running that poorly this season in NASCAR. Much less he will never be a play starting 13th. I will pretty much guarantee you that there's about a 0% chance that he will be on the winning lineup this week. I say about 0 because if it was possible to have a negative percentage, I would argue that a negative percentage is possible here. But since that's not possible, I will concede to all of you, though, that if roughly 24 cars wreck out, he might end up on the winning lineup. So there's that probability. I just want to be completely upfront and disclose. But, man, Trevor Bayne has been awful this season. I realize he's cheap, and that might get you to want to make a play. But there is 0% chance he goes anywhere but backwards unless a lot of people wreck, in my opinion. Liehr, you want to add more to my chalky plays of chalk this week?
Yeah, I don't know, brother. Roush Fenway just kind of between Sticky Ricky not sticking to the track and hitting the wall, and Trevor Bayne having blown up and having engine issues, and the Bayne train is definitely falling off the tracks. That is for sure.
Dude, we haven't got to play Quad City DJs like at all this year. I'm so mad. I love riding the train, but man, he's been awful. Yeah,
it really has been a bad 2018 season for Roush Fenway so far. So, but that's really all I've got because that's not even on my radar. But one thing I do think that we need to discuss, and I think it's going to be a vital discussion this weekend. It's going to be something that every player is going to be thinking about, and that is the Chase Elliott play. His price tag, his starting position. Your thoughts?
Here's the problem. When you put together lineups as $9,900 price tag starting 20th, it limits what you can do with the rest of your build. Like if you're trying to run a one dominator lineup, you can put Elliott on it. However, when you reach up to the likes of Harvick and Rowdy, Elliott really limits what you can put below him. And Elliott has had a problem finishing races this year so far, and has actually, even when we, just like the other place differential plays in McMurray that you talk smack on, this is another guy that when we've played him in the back several times this season, he's already let us down. So I don't know that it's the right play. I think there's some other guys back there that look a little better. Plus, dude, the Chevys just all looked off this week. Yeah. And the only one that looked even remotely decent was Jimmy Johnson, and we've already talked about. I mean, dude, do you want to play Jimmy Johnson starting ninth the way he's been riding this year and rolling? No. Like, I don't. And Chase Elliott at 9,900, dude, he literally has to get to the top 5 and probably dominate some laps to pay off that salary. Like, it's scary this week, in my opinion. Are you looking to roster him?
Well, I think he's an interesting play. The cost factor versus the production factor. Obviously picking a guy that costs that much money and starting that far back in the field hinders what you can do with your dominator. So like you talked about, I mean, that's basically choosing one specific dominator up towards the front and then him as your guy coming up through the field. But one thing I do like about Chase Elliott is he's never finished in 4 races here. He's never finished outside the top 10. Mm-hmm. So that's 10 plus place differential points there too. But you got to, circle in the fact of, what's that going to play out to dollar-wise when it comes to spending that money elsewhere. And do you honestly feel like he can go out and lead laps here and, finish up with a top 5? Because that's what it's going to take is leading, 50 to 100 laps plus a top 5 at that 20 starting position to pay off that $9,900 salary point. And more than likely, that's probably not going to happen. So I think it's an interesting swerve play. Definitely if you want to throw a dart, for GPP out there, I think he's probably going to – I mean, what do you think his ownership percentage is going to be? Do you think a lot of people will be you think less owned because he's so high costing?
No, I think it'll be split. You know how the Chase bandwagon fans are. They love to roster the guy's always over-owned for what he should be on any track.
Yeah, it's kind of the Dale Earnhardt syndrome of the
last name. He's the new fan favorite, so he gets overplayed every track. This time he'll probably be right around the 50+% mark, which he usually is, and I'm guessing half of the people are going to try to roster him and squeeze stuff in, and half the people are going to say, screw it, that I can save money. And just to show you how ridiculous it is, you can literally save $3,200 playing his teammate in William Byron. Like, they're in the exact same car, and Byron gets you 13 more place differential place potential. I just don't understand why you would play Chase Elliott and not play Byron. It just doesn't make sense. But
I hear you there.
So that's the route I'm going this week. Why don't you go ahead and recap who won last week's for us, and we'll wrap up the show then and say our goodbyes and get us out of here.
Yeah, so congratulations to Jay Ross, 9191, with a top score of 399.5. So 50 points coming your way. So congratulations on winning at Martinsville at the STP 500. His lineup that he had was AJ Allmendinger at 59.5, which that was a guy that we had talked about. I know somebody that you were a little scared of because of the chattering, but ended up paying off anyways. Then the surpriser of all surprisers. I think a lot of people did like Clint Boyer, but definitely not expecting him to win the race. But Clint Boyer, 145.25 points, and was just the absolute dominator at Martinsville. Then you had Denny Hamlin, my burner rubber pick, so must own, came through there, 74.75. Then you had Kevin Harvick at a 58.5, Casey Kane with a 25, and Daniel Suarez.
Nice job, sir. Well done. And with that said, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in as always. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and comment on the videos, as we love having this dialogue with you. Remember, like, that's one of the things we want to do, is create a fantasy community where we can talk NASCAR and fantasy together. So, Liehr, say your goodbyes and get us out of here.
Well, I hope you guys all had a great Easter and are enjoying your weekend. Been a weird weather situation recently amongst the country, and we're getting that here in good old Kansas City today. We were supposed to have snow yesterday, didn't happen, and then today started off really cold and ended up being a nice day. Got to mow the lawn for the first time in the 2018 season, and then tomorrow they're calling it the 1 to 4 inches of snow. So the Mother Nature just really doesn't know what she really wants to do yet, and but good luck this weekend. I'm looking forward to Texas. It's always a good race. Here's to Kyle Larson taking it tomorrow for his first win of the season.
All right, well, y'all have a good one. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Let's win some money. Weekend.